So you mentioned like the difference between knack fencing and like the high level fencing at World Cups. What do you guys think the biggest actual like tangible differences are that are like keeping people from the knack level like and being successful on the World Cup level?
The same thing that it always is in our country, which is support past the age of 22. Um, for the US, I'm sure it's probably different in Canada, but when you've got 88% of our membership quitting after 22, and the driving force in the US is to get into college. So you've got these
Yes.
monster cadet, monster junior results, and even some really, really good senior results through 22. But if you haven't broken through in the senior level when you're a junior in the US, it's you're really we've kind of blown out the curve in terms of development, what we think a successful fencer should be. And that's kind of sad, because I know there are always going to be phenoms, but the usual path is it takes 5 to 10 years to like be a good fencer and figure this out. And we don't have that. We don't have those journeyman fencers.
It's
or
true.
Those people given, like, even look at Facconi. He needed time to develop, and he said it himself. He needed time to develop and take it seriously. And it was when his best friend won the gold medal that it was the kick he needed. And look what he did to his career at like 31.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
So,
yeah, going back to what you said about college, that's totally true. Like the parents and a lot of the kids, their singular goal is to get into college. And a lot of the time they'll really push themselves and really work hard. But once they get in college, a lot of them will like relax. And unless the person is like phenomenal, they're not going to keep going after college is over, because there's just nothing in it for them.
I had plenty of parents who they gave their kid one shot internationally, and they either if they did it, they kept going, and if they didn't, that was it, and they just got into the college of their choice, and that was it. And that's fine. They get to use fencing for what they want. It's a little sad, but from our point of view, but at the same time, it's an amazing opportunity for the people involved.
I think all that is true, that a lot of people focus on getting into college and then finishing after college. However, I'm a little bit more optimistic in where we are right now. And I'm optimistic for two reasons. Number one, especially like in women's foil, we have young fencers which will represent the United States now in World Championships. So we have 2 juniors which will be in the team. And we have the Olympic Games at home in 2028. And hopefully that will get a few people thinking about extending their career beyond the college career. So yes, normally what Dan says is the norm. But I think the Olympic Games at home in LA might help us in the next 6 years to get some people excited for that goal. Hopefully there's a bit more funding for that. And then maybe in the next 6 years, we are in better shape, and then let's see how long that's going to continue. But I'm a little bit more optimistic with LA 2028 and like in women's foil having a transition of younger athletes breaking into the team pretty early. So I'm slightly more optimistic.
Maybe I've just been warped because I've just been working with Great Britain too long. That's my
Well, you have been in the US too long. I'm only here for
Yeah, I see it differently a little bit than you guys. Although Dan, I would almost phrase what you said differently in that, I don't know if this makes sense. The best athletes are like real professionals, and they're either real professionals because that's how they treat their, like I'm thinking about, and so in my experience, like the 2 athletes that I work with who have had success on the World Cup circuit are Eleanor and Kelly, and they're like professional athletes. They really do everything, and you can't do that when you're in school. Like you can't necessarily have time to do all that stuff. But more than that,
Marcus is a professional athlete.
Exactly,
100%.
And but more than that, like Marcus is probably a good example. I don't know him at all, but I bet he is. That those people chose to pursue fencing because they loved fencing and they're a little bit obsessed with fencing. And
more
because
than,
of
more,
that,
than, more than a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
trust me, I know. Trust me, I know. And so, but if you think about it, like maybe that's all it is. Maybe it's that other people are hedging their bets a little bit and they're like, well, I'm not sure if I could be good at this or not. So I'm going to go on and do something else because I was pretty good, but I don't know how good I could be. And then you've got some other people who are like, no, this is what I want to do. I'm going to put the time in and I'm going to endure failure, as you're describing Facconi. I'm going to endure some failure because I really love this. And that like willingness to pursue and like stay persistent, I think is a special quality. Like,
I also think for all of us who stay in the sport for as long as we have, in whatever capacity it is, I think the one thing, we love about it is that we love who this sport tells us we are. Do you know what I mean? And like what it tells us about ourselves and the way we choose to solve the problems or have relationships with people and discussions about the sport. I think I was telling this, it was when we were Alex and I were in Incheon, we were in the same spot and everybody was making fun of us because we were just in the same spot in front of the hotel, like the entire week. Every week, just talking about fencing. I was talking to a bunch of people, Ralph too, where the thing I love most about going to World Cups is watching other coaches give lessons. I mean, I like the fencing is fine, but I love watching other coaches give lessons. I love picking stuff up. I was talking to Greg Koenig, like and also maybe Ralph, remember, like back in our day, it wasn't quite as professional it was. And the fencers would go and party afterwards together. Now maybe the teams stay a little separate, but the coaches who were the fencers then remember like being together and everybody's like together and like talking about fencing, and it's a really nice situation. I really like it.
Yeah, Dan and I think I got in trouble because I was supposed to go upstairs and Dan and I got into like an hour-long talk about what your feet do at ready fence. And yeah, what about this? What about that? Should you put your toe down or should you keep your heel up or your toe up, you know? And no, it's that honestly, that's one of the best parts about being a fencing coach. It's great. But that's what I mean, that people who are really obsessed with it, like will find a way to become good at it.
That's true. Hey guys, I just got back from vacation and I'm hard at work editing a bunch of different videos for everyone. As many of you may know, my anticipated Amazing Touches video is coming up soon. I often get asked why I only use men's saber clips in these annual videos. And the answer is, most people aren't aware of just how long it actually takes to make videos like this. The truth is, I usually spend somewhere between 80 and 150 hours on each of them, which sounds like a lot because it is. And most of the time that I spend on these videos is actually spent sifting through hours and hours of streams to find the amazing touches that eventually make the cut in the video. But with a few more people contributing to my Patreon account, I could probably afford to pay some people to help me go through these videos and find the clips that I'm looking for. And if that happened, maybe I'd be able to make another video or two. Who knows, maybe I'd even be able to make 6 of them. A link to my Patreon account is in the video description, so if that sounds appealing to you, please feel free to contribute. The easiest thing to do is just drop $1 in there, but if you drop $3 in there, you get access to my rough drafts before I post them, and there are other benefits too. So take a quick look if you have the means. I'd really appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching. Please continue enjoying the video. The next question I was asked a lot is, what do you guys think the biggest difference between the junior and senior circuit is?
Gotta think about it. I think it depends actually on the gender a little bit. I think in women's foil, the difference not necessarily that big. We have a lot of people who transition pretty easily from juniors to seniors, which are successful there. If we take a look at Maya this year, she has done a top 8 in a World Cup, where she still was junior. I think in men's foil is a little bit different. I think it's a little bit more complicated. I think the Chase Emeralds, who did 3rd in Paris, is more the exception than the norm. So everything is a little bit sharper, right? So the preparation is better, the execution is better. Everything is just a tiny little bit more fine-tuned and better, more developed. And then you have some who take a little bit longer. It took me forever to transition from juniors to seniors. I didn't do a top 8 until I was like, I think 23, 24. Some others are a little bit faster, but I think in women's foil, the gap is a little bit narrower than it is in men's foil.
Why do you think that
In
is?
Well, physicality, I think some of those guys in men's foil, they are very physical, and you have some juniors which are very physical, like or with has physical advantages, like Marini, who is like just tall. But I think senior men's foil is way more physical than junior men's foil. I think senior women's foil.
That's interesting.
Also more physical, but the gap is not that
But not
big.
to the same degree. That's interesting.
I think so. Alex might want to chip into that, whether they're off path or whether that makes sense to him.
It makes sense to me. I to be honest, I think that the biggest difference isn't the fencing ability. It's the juniors. Some of them have had a continuous success and haven't had their like egos broken yet. And it happens to everybody eventually. Like, so you have a lot of people who are like extremely confident, and that changes the fencing a little bit. And I think that's why sometimes they do well on the senior circuit, because they haven't hit that, like inevitably everyone, no matter how good you are, almost everyone hits like some failure, and it changes how you fence. And you see it a lot that one of those people who did a couple of really good results when they were a kid, all of a sudden doesn't make the second day a couple times, and they don't get on guard the same way. And my feeling is that on the senior circuit, you just have it's more of a test, because it's really like, it can be really hard just to make the second day. Whereas if you go to a junior World Cup and you're pretty good, you're going to make like the 32 and at least. And to me, the difference is like, it's more like mental strength. And of course it's fencing. After a while, you practice more, you have unlimited time, essentially, you get better. But to me, it's like the people who have suffered through they had their like success, and then they had they had some struggle, and they came out of that struggle and like showed themselves that they could still do it, and then stuck around. And like I said, I don't know Marcus, but I think Marcus is someone who, like, he endured long enough to really, like, now he's kind of taking off, or he has been taking off for a little bit. And I think that the junior level is just, you have more people who haven't like had that yet. So maybe they're a little bit naively self-confident, and that's good for a while, but it's at a certain point you're like, fencing slaps you in the face as soon as you think you're good, right? So.
And also the men, they're just so much bigger and stronger. I mean, like when I was a fencer, I was average, and now I'm small. And you can't be small and right-handed anymore. You can be small and left-handed. The only way you're going to be small and right-handed is if you're the fastest man on earth, and that doesn't last for very long. But as I agree with what Alex was saying, because at a certain point, everybody can fence. Everybody can fence, or 90% of the people can fence. But it's that 10% who can like get out of their own head and just remember their training and let that take over, especially in crucial situations, and because you're so big and so strong, to be in physical shape, to like just remember that. It's that Mike Tyson quote, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face. And it's like, what do you do? How do you take that punch? What do you do afterwards?
You see it too, that everybody, the men's foil especially, when they're like their first couple World Cups, when they meet one of those big guys who just assaults them every time the referee says fence, and they look great in practice, they could do everything really well, and they look like they're just an animal. It's
You're in the headlights.
Getting cornered by a bigger animal. They just all of a sudden they're at the end of the strip every time the referee says fence, or they're going in the middle and getting hit with para post. And but you have to, and that's what I mean. You have to endure that a little bit.
Yeah.
But